There are two rules that will be in play tomorrow night that will be interesting to watch. The first is that for the last two election cycles in 03 and 07, the candidate who spent the most money in a statewide race won that race. What's going to be interesting is to see if that rule holds tomorrow night. Because if that indeed holds true, then Lucian Smith will be the treasurer nominee because he's far and away outspent all the other candidates in that race. I went and checked the 48-hour contribution notices on the Secretary of State's website before coming here, and the only candidates who've shown any significant contribution since filing the pre-election reports have been Billy Hughes and Tate Reeves, both of whom they've raised a good amount of money since that last disclosure report was filed, but none of the other candidates. So the cash balances we saw in the pre-election reports that were filed last week are essentially represents the cash that they have to spend. And if that's the case, then Lucian Smith will be your nominee, Tate Reeves will be your nominee, Phil Bryant will be your nominee. And surprisingly, in the Ag Commissioner's race, both Cindy Hyde-Smith and Max Phillips each showed raising $150,000. So that really is a crapshoot because they've raised and appear to have spent or will spend the same amount of money. The other interesting rule that will be in play tomorrow night is in the Democratic primary for governor. Bill Luckett is spending virtually all of his money in what we call the air war, advertising on television, whereas Johnny Dupree is spending virtually all of his money to the extent that he has it, and he's raised a lot less than Bill Luckett, but they made the campaign decision to spend all of their money on the ground. So you have at play a ground-based campaign and an air war-based campaign. It will be interesting to see which one of those campaigns gets traction, whether the overwhelmingly amount of money that Bill Luckett's been able to spend is enough to overcome a pretty effective ground operation in the Democratic primary. Y'all probably know that Sam Hall is Johnny Dupree's campaign manager. He knows how to run ground campaigns. He did it very successfully for Judge Kitchens when Judge Kitchens beat Jim Smith in the Supreme Court race, a couple of years ago. And he knows how to run those kind of campaigns, and it'll be very interesting to see if that is enough to overcome the money advantage that Bill Luckett has. That being said, Andy wanted me to talk a little bit about the legislature. And as y'all know in this room, discussions of legislative campaigns is all about numbers. It's all about who gets the majority in Mississippi. It's all about whether Democrats or Republicans gain a majority. Unfortunately, it's not about the talent pool. If it was about the talent pool, then Democrats would be far and away ahead of anything that the Republicans. Wouldn't you say so, Andy? Isn't that a fair observation?
Bears for even saying such a thing.
But unfortunately, talent doesn't matter to the Republicans. They're all about increasing numbers. And it's sort of where we are in Mississippi, that whoever gets the most number of votes is going to control the House or is going to control the Senate. So this is sort of the take on it, and I hate to do numbers, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the lay of the land. We start at 68 Democrats in the House and 54 Republicans. Of those 68, 39 are unopposed by a Republican or an independent. 29 Democrats have some kind of opposition in the general election. 10 of those are open seats, 19 are incumbents who have to get reelected. 29 seats are at play, and to be honest, 4 of those are caucus members. So essentially you have 25 Democratic seats that are in play in November out of a total of 68. So sort of keep that figure 28 in your mind just for a minute. And we flip over to the Republican side. 54 Republicans, 30 are unopposed, 24 have opposition, 3 open seats, 21 incumbents have to defend themselves. So 24 Republican seats are in play in the House in November. 25 Democratic seats are in play in November. Here's the crucial difference. Of the 25 seats that are in play for Democrats, Haley Barbour carried all but 4 of those seats in '07. Of the 24 Republican seats that are in play, John Arthur Eves carried one of them in '07. That's what's at stake. That's why this is going to be a very, very close race come November for control of the House. Control of the Senate is a little bit worse for our side of the aisle. 25 Democrats, 27 Republicans. The Republicans did a better job of recruiting candidates in the Senate than they did in the House. Every white Democrat in the Senate got a Republican opponent. And the same can't be said for the Republican incumbents. The Democrats failed to get challengers against Republican incumbents in 19 of the 27 seats that Republicans have to defend. So the race is going to be more lopsided in the Senate, but of course everybody assumed that. Everybody is looking toward the Speaker's race in January of 2012 where to focus the attention. And it's pretty evenly matched, 25 to 24. The difference is that Democrats have to get elected in districts that traditionally go Republican. But we'll sort of see how that is, because once again, in the same way that Republicans can't seem to generate talent among their incumbents in the legislature, they were unable to really recruit top-tier candidates to go up against these Democratic challengers. So, Andy, it's sort of evenly based, even though Democratic candidates have to run in seats that Haley carried. I think they're the better candidates. But, Phil, that's going to be the big race, and it's pretty evenly matched. Tomorrow night, if I can get my glasses on, in case y'all are interested in incumbents, legislators who have opposition. 13 Democrats have opposition tomorrow night. 2 to 5 could potentially lose their re-election campaign. And of course, the big one that everybody's following is House District 19. Mark Duval is being challenged by the chairman of the state Democratic Party, Jamie Franks. Over on the Republican side, 10 Republicans have opposition tomorrow night. And of course, the big one there is Jeff Smith, who went from being a Democrat to being an independent to finally being a Republican, and is being challenged in his Republican primary up there in Lowndes County. What was that? Was there a little chatter back there?
Yeah, more Kipton. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I just want to make sure. So you got Jeff Smith on the Republican side, you got Mark Duval on the Democratic side, but to be honest with you, I bet you there will be more Republican incumbents that lose tomorrow night than Democratic incumbents. John Moore, Roger Ishii, Harvey Fillingane, Rita Martinson, Jeff Smith are all in very tough primary races, and Mark Duval is in a tough race, and there are a couple of other Democrats that are in tough races. So that'll be interesting to watch. And tomorrow night in the Republican primary in the Senate, of course, the marquee race is Terry Burton versus Tad Campbell. Terry Burton, as everyone knows, went his own way, chose to adhere to his conscience during the reapportionment fight, did what everybody in this country asked of their politicians, which is to be statesmen. But of course that wasn't good enough for the Republican Party, so they ran somebody against him in the primary. A guy named Tad Campbell, who had already retired, and they drug dear old Tad Campbell out of retirement, threw him in the Republican primary against Terry Burton. So we'll see how well that does. But Ezell Lee, Doug Davis,
Is this thing working?
Sid Albritton, and Tommy Moffitt all could lose tomorrow night.